They say the dead keep secrets better than the living, but sometimes the dead become the secret. What if I told you that beneath Westminster Abbey, sealed inside a lead coffin, lies a body so dangerous that it has remained untouchable for over 400 years? On March 24, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I died. Official history tells us she passed peacefully, surrounded by loyal servants, after a glorious reign that transformed England into a world power. But the truth is far darker. For weeks before her death, Richmond Palace smelled of rot. Not the clean scent of sickness, not the sharp odor of medicine, but the unmistakable stench of decay. Servants scrubbed the floors with lavender and rosemary. Incense burned day and night, thick smoke filling the corridors until their eyes watered. Nothing worked. The smell crept from the Queen's chambers like a living thing. Inside, Elizabeth was no longer a monarch. She was a shadow trapped inside a failing body. She refused to lie down. For days, then weeks, she remained upright, leaning against cushions, held in place by trembling hands. Her legs could no longer support her. Her body was swollen, weak, and failing. Her eyes stayed open, fixed on corners of the room where no one stood. Sometimes she whispered prayers in broken Latin. Sometimes she called the names of people dead for decades. Sometimes she asked who was standing beside her when the room was empty. Her ladies whispered that the Queen had finally gone mad. But madness was only the surface, because Elizabeth's death was not the result of age. It was the final collapse of a body that had been slowly destroyed over a lifetime of fear, pressure, poison, and impossible expectations. And to understand that death, you must understand her survival. A small child stands in the shadows of the royal court, not yet 3 years old. Her name is Elizabeth Tudor. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, is about to die. They do not allow the child to witness the execution, but she hears it, the roar of the crowd, the heavy footsteps, the sudden, terrible silence. Her mother's head falls. In that moment, Elizabeth learns her first lesson about power. Women are disposable. Love is lethal, and weakness gets you killed. Her father, Henry VIII, will go on to marry 4 more times. 2 wives will be executed. 1 will die in childbirth. Only 1 will survive him. Elizabeth grows up inside a palace that is less a home and more a slaughterhouse. Courtiers vanish overnight. Friends become enemies by morning. 1 careless sentence can end your life. She watches, she listens, she learns. When she is declared illegitimate, stripped of her title and sent away from court, she does not cry. She curtsies politely and thanks them for their mercy. But inside, she is memorizing every face. She studies relentlessly: Latin, Greek, French, Italian, philosophy, rhetoric, theology. Knowledge becomes her weapon. Intelligence becomes her armor. If being a woman makes her vulnerable, she will become indispensable. Then comes the Tower. In 1554, Elizabeth's half-sister Mary becomes queen and begins her brutal campaign to restore Catholic rule. Protestants burn at the stake. London reeks of smoke and flesh. Elizabeth, a Protestant symbol, becomes a threat. She is arrested and taken to the Tower of London. Everyone knows what that means. The Tower is not a prison. It is a waiting room for death. Elizabeth is locked inside the same stone chambers where her mother waited before execution. The walls still bear desperate carvings, names, prayers, final confessions. For 2 months she lives not knowing whether each day will be her last. Interrogations, accusations, silence. Mary wants her dead. The evidence is thin. Letters, rumors, associations. But in Tudor England, thin evidence is enough when the monarch desires blood. So how does Elizabeth survive? By performing. She becomes whatever her captors need her to be. Humble, obedient, weak, devout. Catholic when watched, sick when pressed, fragile when threatened. Every word is calculated, every tear precisely timed. It is the greatest performance of her life, and it saves her. But it also destroys something inside her forever. From that moment on, Elizabeth learns the final lesson of survival. Never reveal who you truly are. Mary dies. England is exhausted, broken, and terrified. And suddenly, impossibly, Elizabeth is queen. She is 25 years old. Her mother executed, her father a tyrant, her brother dead, her sister gone. She has survived a childhood surrounded by death. Now she sits on the most dangerous throne in Europe. The crown does not make her safe. It makes her a target.
The moment Elizabeth became queen, the pressure began. From her council, from Parliament, from foreign kings, from every powerful man in Europe. The message was unanimous. Marry, produce an heir, secure the succession. To them, a woman ruling alone was unthinkable. A queen without a husband was instability. A queen without children was a ticking bomb. But Elizabeth understood something they did not. Marriage would not protect her. It would destroy her. Any husband would claim authority over her. Any child would become a rival. Any pregnancy could kill her. And any visible weakness would invite invasion. So she did what she had always done. She delayed. Spain offered Prince Philip, widower of her dead sister, ruler of a vast Catholic empire. Accepting would mean surrendering England to foreign control. Elizabeth smiled and said she would consider it. Austria offered Archduke Charles. France proposed the Duke of Anjou. Sweden sent King Eric's endless love letters and flattering portraits. Elizabeth entertained them all. She flirted. She negotiated. She promised nothing. Years passed. Suitors aged. Alliances shifted. And still she remained unmarried. To Europe, it seemed like strategy. But behind closed doors, whispers grew. Something about the Queen was different. Foreign ambassadors were trained observers. Their job was to record everything: posture, speech, health, mannerisms. And what they reported was strange. They noted her unusually deep voice, her commanding, almost masculine presence, her physical strength and stamina, her lack of visible feminine fragility. One Spanish envoy wrote that her body was not formed as other women's. His report abruptly ended. He was recalled to Spain before elaborating. The Venetian ambassador remarked that she moved more like a soldier than a lady. These were not insults, they were confusion. Then came the illnesses. In 1566, Elizabeth collapsed with violent fever and pain so severe she believed she was dying. For the first time, her doctors were allowed to examine her body. What they found was never recorded. But one physician left her chambers pale, shaking, and visibly disturbed. He refused to speak of what he had seen, even to colleagues. A year later, he was dead. Sudden fever, no investigation.
In 1568, Elizabeth collapsed again during a council meeting. When her ladies loosened her clothing, one fainted. The others immediately cleared the room. No explanation was ever given. Modern medical historians suspect Elizabeth may have been born with a rare intersex condition, one that caused her to appear female but lack functional reproductive organs. If true, pregnancy would have been impossible. Her virginity, then, was not a choice. It was a necessity. A secret that, if revealed, would have destroyed her legitimacy. And so she constructed a myth. The Virgin Queen. Pure, untouched, divinely appointed. The symbol of a nation. But the mask came at a terrible price. Elizabeth's signature appearance, porcelain skin, crimson lips, flaming red hair, was achieved through a daily ritual of poison. Her white makeup was made from lead mixed with vinegar. Sometimes arsenic was added to improve texture. Day after day, year after year, the poison seeped through her skin and into her blood. Slowly, relentlessly. Lead poisoning destroys the nervous system. It attacks the brain, the organs, the bones. Elizabeth suffered constant headaches, chronic stomach pain, joint weakness, insomnia, memory lapses, sudden violent mood swings. She became infamous for her temper, screaming one moment, charming the next. Her body was rotting beneath her beauty, but she could not stop. Without the mask, she would look mortal, and mortal queens do not survive. Then there was the corset. Elizabeth demanded the most extreme silhouette of her era, rigid posture, tiny waist, towering presence. Her corsets compressed her torso by up to 8 inches. Every day. For over 40 years. Her ribs bent inward, her organs shifted, her lungs struggled to expand, her digestion became constant agony. Standing upright required effort, but she stood. Hour after hour, speech after speech, ceremony after ceremony. Because collapse meant weakness, and weakness meant death. While her body deteriorated, the threats multiplied. At the center of them all stood one woman, Mary, Queen of Scots, Elizabeth's cousin, Catholic, beautiful, charismatic, and fertile. Mary had what Elizabeth never could, a son. To Catholic Europe, Mary was the rightful Queen of England. For 19 years, Elizabeth kept her imprisoned. 19 years of conspiracies, assassination plots, foreign invasions planned around her existence, until finally, in 1587, Elizabeth signed her death warrant. Another queen was beheaded, and something inside Elizabeth shattered.
Mary's execution did not bring peace. It brought war. In 1588, Philip II of Spain launched the greatest invasion fleet Europe had ever seen, the Spanish Armada. 130 ships, over 30,000 men. Their mission was simple: destroy Elizabeth, conquer England, and restore Catholic rule. If they succeeded, Elizabeth would be executed. Her body would be paraded through London as a warning. She was 54 years old. Her body was already breaking. The lead poisoning, the corsets, the sleepless nights, the endless fear. She could barely walk without pain. Yet she rode to Tilbury to address her army. Clad in ceremonial armor, she mounted a white horse and faced thousands of soldiers who feared they were marching to their deaths. Her voice cut through the wind. "I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman," she declared, "but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England." For 3 hours, she became something more than human. She rode along the ranks, meeting their eyes, projecting absolute certainty. The army roared in response. Morale transformed into fanatical loyalty. Elizabeth had once again performed survival. Days later, the Armada was shattered, defeated by English tactics and Atlantic storms. England rejoiced. Elizabeth became a living legend. But privately, she collapsed. For weeks, she could not leave her chambers. She could not eat solid food. Her pain was unbearable. Her physicians whispered of internal bleeding and organ damage. The price of victory had nearly killed her. In 1588, just weeks after the Armada's defeat, Robert Dudley died, the only man Elizabeth had ever loved. His death devastated her. She locked herself inside her rooms, refused food, refused company, wore his final letter close to her heart for the rest of her life. After that, the loneliness became unbearable. She turned her affection toward a younger man, Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex. Handsome, charismatic, reckless, half her age. She spoiled him, protected him, forgave his mistakes, until he betrayed her. In 1601, Essex attempted a coup, marching armed supporters through London, trying to seize control of the government. It collapsed within hours. Treason. Elizabeth wept as she signed his execution warrant, but she signed it. Essex was beheaded, and with him died the last emotional bond Elizabeth had. From that moment on, she began to fade. By 1600, her physical decay could no longer be hidden. Her teeth had rotted away from sugar and lead. Her breath smelled of infection. She stuffed her cheeks with cloth to preserve the shape of her face. Her hair was gone, bald from poison and stress. She wore towering wigs, heavy with jewels. Her hands trembled constantly. Her eyesight failed, and beneath the layers of perfume and incense, the smell of decay lingered. Something inside her body was rotting. A tumor, an abscess, organ failure. No one dared investigate. By early 1603, Elizabeth stopped eating. Her throat swelled. Her stomach rejected food. Her abdomen filled with fluid, grotesquely distended, giving her the cruel appearance of pregnancy. After a lifetime of virginity, her body mocked her. She refused to lie down. For days, then weeks, she remained upright, leaning against cushions held by her exhausted ladies. "I will never rise again if I lie down," she whispered. She spoke to ghosts. She stared into empty corners. She drifted in and out of delirium. Her counselors panicked. She had not named an heir. England stood on the edge of chaos. Finally, on March 23rd, they persuaded her to acknowledge James of Scotland as successor. That night, she collapsed. They carried her to her bed. Her breathing became shallow. Her eyes stared unblinking. At dawn, on March 24th, 1903, Elizabeth Tudor stopped breathing. No final speech, no confession, only silence. And then the cover-up began. The doors were locked, guards posted. Only trusted servants remained. When they removed the makeup, skin peeled away with it. Beneath lay blackened, ulcerated flesh. Her ribs were bent inward, some cracked. Deep grooves scarred her torso where the corset had crushed her for decades. The smell became unbearable. Between her legs, one servant later wrote, there was something terribly wrong, either misformed or missing. She could not describe it. Her abdomen contained a hard mass, tumor or abscess. No examination was allowed. The body was wrapped immediately and sealed in lead. The coffin was closed before rigor mortis fully set. Doctors died soon after. Servants were dismissed and scattered. Within days, Elizabeth was buried deep beneath Westminster Abbey, and her tomb was sealed forever. 400 years have passed. Scientists have begged to examine her remains. Historians have pleaded. Governments have refused. Other kings have been exhumed, studied, scanned, but never Elizabeth. Her coffin remains untouched, because whatever lies inside would destroy the legend. The Virgin Queen, pure, perfect, eternal. Elizabeth did not simply rule England, she sacrificed her body to it, and England buried the evidence. Some secrets are too powerful to reveal, some bodies must remain sealed, and some myths are worth more than the truth.